Andrew's downstairs in the basement and going to run us through the art gallery. We don't want to have a poster session. That feels unlike the spirit of what we're getting at. So Andrew is going to share some awesome stories. That was just a chance for everyone. And again, an invitation for everyone who's watching and watches in the future to participate in this as well. So Andrew, I'm going to shut up and you do this.
Thank you all for joining. I want this to be really as kind of low pressure as possible. Please treat this like you're kind of walking around a room with a bunch of people just with some posters set up. This is kind of a space for us to hang out and to share some stories. I have some folks with us today who have really graciously kind of sent in some stories for us, but very first I kind of wanted to share a little bit just of kind of my perspective of why we would even do this, why would we even have an art gallery. So the most kind of pertinent quote for us is actually from a philosopher and a poet and a theoreticist named Joan Redelac, who said that everything in mass culture is designed to deliver space-time in a series of shiny freeze frames, each with its built-in strategy of persuasion. One writes essays and poetry, and we might say one shares stories, to stay warm and active and realistically messy. So I wanted to just stay a little warm and a little active and realistically messy with you all today. I'm really excited for what we're going to share. The very first thing I also wanted to do was to give you kind of a warm welcome from our resident kind of band that I help facilitate at U of L called The Grooves. This is an All Abilities band. And so also to kind of give context, this is kind of how this is going to run in general, is that we are going to kind of, I'm going to share my screen and kind of present everybody's art that they've submitted. And then right after I've presented the art, I'm going to invite the person on to kind of share around 5 minutes or so, just to say, almost as kind of like an artist note, like you might see in a museum, basically, to say, hey, this is what I was thinking when I was creating this, just to kind of give us some context for what we're seeing. So first, I just wanted to give you an introduction to our band, The Grooves. This is a video that we recorded. They're performing tomorrow, so this is a video they recorded. I just kind of set up a camera and said, hey, what do you love about the band? What do you want to say to people? And invite them to the concert. So here's what they had to say.
Hi guys, my name is Anna Webster. I'm doing this video to advertise band, and I hope you guys can come to our performance this Friday.
Playing the cool drums.
Playing the guitar.
That I can see all my friends there, and it's really enjoyable. Really meet new friends and become like a band together. And I love singing, so this will be a part of me singing.
You should come to the concert next Friday because see the Grooves play and also see me jamming out on the drum set.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Go see the Grooves on next Friday.
Hey, come see us Friday, April 12th. Be here now.
That's The Grooves. I don't want to talk too much. I want to give mainly a lot of this time to my friends who have submitted art and things like that. But I just wanted to start us off on that note, just to kind of share what I've been doing kind of recently in my practice, in just kind of creating space for community and music to exist together. Also to kind of give you some background on me really quickly. I'm a relatively new professional. I was certified as an MTBC in January of 2021. And am also a poet and a writer and a songwriter, as I'm sure many of us are. But specifically, I'm kind of interested in the ways that our writing and poetry and essays and even research articles kind of communicates those, as I said earlier, kind of warm and messy and tiny things that are important to the people that we work with primarily, right? But also to other music therapists, and to kind of just increase that awareness and advocacy for the people that we work with, using their words and using kind of our experiences of those community spaces. So without further ado, I'm going to share really quickly from our first person who couldn't be here in person today, but she is actually a former intern here at the clinic and is now working in the southern Ohio, northern Kentucky area here in the U.S. As a music therapist. And she is going to talk to you a little bit about this experience of foster care performance. So basically, I think Chris has mentioned this a couple times today, and he actually edited one of these videos that I'm going to show. This is a co-collaboration between some of our sophomore music therapy students here at the university and Boys and Girls Haven, which is a residential foster care home in the Louisville area. These sophomore students, in a very this is a lot of their very first music therapy clinical interaction. So a lot of them are figuring this out as they go, as well as the foster kids that they are interacting with, right? So they go as a group of around 10 or so students to the foster care home every Friday for a semester, and they engage in musicking or hanging out or talking, or even kind of breaking that clinical skin, right, of like just interacting with someone who has had a very different life experience typically than you. So this is kind of the culmination of that experience. I'm going to really quickly kind of show a video of that last concert that is the culmination of their experience, and then I'm going to share with you kind of Abby's takeaways.
Yes. Before we start, I'm going to do one. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Practice real quick. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
There you go. you some idea of kind of what they're after there. And I'm going to share kind of Abby's takeaway really quickly.
Hi everyone, this is Abby Kaminsky, and I had the wonderful, awesome opportunity of working with some students over at the Boys and Girls Haven in Louisville, Kentucky. So I basically got to supervise a group of sophomores in their first clinical experience at the Boys and Girls Haven. It's their sophomore year, I believe, but during my internship, which was a really awesome experience because not only did I get to watch those college students grow and their clinical experience, but you also got to see the boys grow a lot. So basically how it was structured is we would sit there, we would check in as everybody, trickled in the room and just get a basis of where everyone was. There were a lot of jokes thrown around, teenage boys, and then it was really neat to see how different groups were formed and what different things they focused on. Some of them were really focused on the instrument learning. Some of them really enjoyed songwriting or just listening to music and talking about it. One of the biggest things I took away was just watching the boys in foster care really discover more of who they were throughout this experience, as they learned an instrument and they faced those challenges of like, oh shoot, how in the world do you play a G chord? How do I transition between these chords? You can see their mind working and building up skills that they can take outside of this experience and take into their lives past foster care. And another really awesome thing was watching them again discover more about who they are, especially if they were recording music or writing music, expressing themselves in a brand new way for some of them. And it was really special seeing the college students working with those younger kids and them, challenging their own skills in how do I work this DAW system? How do I make sure I'm prepared enough so that I can teach this client how to record this music that means a lot to them? Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes they would be a little difficult to work with. They would say, no, I don't want to do anything today. I just want to, record or random stuff or just watch videos on YouTube. And those sessions were also equally as important as the quote-unquote more productive ones, if that makes sense, because in that you're building trust and rapport of, oh, well, I don't really feel like doing anything. Is Miss Abby going to yell at me and make me do something that I don't want to do? Or will she, give me grace in that and let me just take a load off and enjoy music in my own way that day. So, yeah, there were a lot of ups and downs like there are with anything, but it was really just you don't know what you're gonna get every day, but every day was just as interesting and just as rewarding as the last. And that's just kind of my 2 cents on how we use community music therapy with that population and with that group. Yeah, I think it's really valuable and a really freeing approach to music therapy because we can get a little rigid in our practice of saying, no, we need to do music this way, but really it's more about like the quality of relationship and experience in the music rather than just learning how to play a scale, But anyway, thanks for letting me chime in.
That was really cool as a supervisor to hear. Just as kind of an aside, I supervised Abby in her internship, and absolutely, yes, Olivia, I love what you're saying about kind of accepting those, what we might perceive, especially as kind of new professionals, sometimes as like not productive things or things that are veering off the course of where we want the session to go, but kind of referring back right to that person-centered approach of affirming humanity, right, and affirming choice in all those situations that we do. So thank you, Abby. Great. I'm going to move on here to our next person. And as always, feel free to keep conversation open in the chat. Feel free to kind of talk between yourselves. My hope is that we'll have a couple minutes at the end to kind of just talk about any of the things that we've discussed or seen. But at the very least, what I'm going to do, actually I'll do this right now while I'm sharing our next video, is kind of paste the link to this folder to you so you can, similar to any art exhibit online, you can kind of look at these as you will and peruse them. And then also Chris mentioned, I know later on we're going to have a digital version, kind of a magazine, a zine of all of these put together as well after the conference. So let me go ahead, and Santiago, I'm going ahead and just play your video, and then after that I'll go ahead and spotlight you and you can share about that. Thank you for being here again. Here we go.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, so much for sharing and for this opportunity to share this work. I'm Santiago. I'm a music therapist from Argentina. I'm finishing level 1 of Northern Province training. I'm part of a team working with teenagers in a community music therapy since 2022. In a community far away from the city, I live like 80 kilometers from Buenos Aires. And the inspiration of this song was from an activity that pursued talking about things that they worry about. The teenagers suggest different topics like money, school, jobs. But one teenager said that she was worried about suicide. So the whole group started to express their concerns about this issue. And I highlight that if me as the coordinator had proposed that topic, it couldn't have been possible to develop it. But when interventions are made by one member of the group, it's easy to talk about sensitive topics like this. And well, yeah, that's kind of all. We have like 8 songs about different things, like having friends, like how hard is having friends, how hard is trust. The thing that we like, how hard is to express that something that they don't want, that they don't like. And like it's interesting how music therapy in this place, it's like a moment of being teenagers again, because a lot of like the work in this community function as an organizer. Really, so it's really interesting how they start to develop, because nobody knows music. It's like, okay, you can play right here, use the white notes, you can play little beam, and it's funny, I think, to share, like, if I put in some sort of way, like a coordinator who obligates teenagers, you must do this and keep the rhythm, come on. It's like, no, man, sorry. But if I said, if you stop, your friend is going to lose the tempo, it's going to be lost. Oh, I should keep going, though. So it's interesting how, I don't know, without teaching, we are creating powerful songs. So again, I'm very grateful for being here. Thank you so much to everyone. It's amazing, really amazing to listen to Brightful and Gary and everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's been an incredible day. Thank you for being part of it, Santiago. I love that video. Thank you for sending it in. I love how they, like you said, it's kind of a very, it's an ecosystem, right? They're all kind of thriving off of each other and listening to each other, and I love how that comes together in those kind of spaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So we may go ahead and move over to you, Jesse, if that's okay. So I'll go ahead and I can share the poems that you sent in from my screen. If you want to read them in your voice, that's great. Or if you would rather me, that's okay too. So I'll just pin you up here. Do you have a preference for which one we should start with?
No, I think let's start with the road, but either's fine.
Great.
So I can give a little bit of context, maybe after I read, but these are two poems that were contributed by individuals that I was working with at the time. So here's the first one, The Road. There's always a plot twist to a story. Many may think of the absolute worst, but I say sometimes you need a spice of love, a little spice of fun, and maybe a little spice of none. Just know that there is always tomorrow. To finish the unthinkable, to start to finish, from start to finish, from beginning to end. My story or your story awaits. So let the journey begin to tell all each a very good tale about the plot twist to your story, which will never end. All right. And the other one here is entitled Self-Love. And it looks really lovely. Self-love. To look in the mirror and love what I see, to be proud of my work that was done by me, to strive forward when I can't see ahead, to have a positive attitude when I get out of bed, to say no to things that hurt me, to accept my uniqueness and just be, to accept my mistakes, to learn from them, and to do what it takes, to succeed, but first I have to love me. Thank you. So, these are two poems, and I had written a little bit that I wanted to share in context of them, but also maybe we'll talk off the cuff a little bit just based on some of the things that were shared today. So, these two poems were written in the context of a creative arts therapy group I work in an acute inpatient psychiatric setting in the Bronx, Jacobi Medical Center. And they centered around the idea of self-love that individuals had chosen to explore through pre-existing poems. Particularly, we had looked at the poem, I believe it's called, hold on now, Phenomenal Women or Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou, to explore through that poem as well as their original writings. And so following the experience of writing, the individuals chose to share their poems with one another, and they gave such like a beautiful welcome reception and encouraging feedback to one another. And then there was this request for them to exchange the poems with one another, to make copies, and they really wanted to take each other's kind of thoughts home with one another as a way to continue on past the inpatient setting. So, I had this idea. Oh, and also, sorry to mention, there's a real sense of wanting to share it here as well. Real sense of honor in bringing these poems to this setting. So, while community music therapy can take many forms, and I think it's been really lovely to hear about all those today, I think it's really important to allow space for community music therapy and community in general to form where there are potential inherent barriers to its existence. And so the hospital setting, particularly like the mental health setting, can often feel very sterile, very inhumane in ways, very isolating. And so as a therapist, like I really want to bring or attempt to bring that communal ethos into the music therapy groups, trying to provide this platform for individuals to relate, create, communicate with each other, and just have this experience of being in community with one another. And I had written like, while the individuals come from a range of identities, they're able to express and explore these identities in this context and also come together on the shared identity of focusing on their mental health in this context. So had all that prepared, but also just want to add this idea that, when I was putting this together, I was doubting whether or not this was even a valuable contribution because I was thinking, is this music therapy? Is this community music therapy? And after sitting through today, I'm going to say yes to both. I feel really good about sharing them because, there was this process that occurred where we had been doing music therapy. I think we had been doing some sort of songwriting group, and some of the individuals I was working with just really, they loved the writing part in itself. And they said, why aren't we, or why can't we do just poetry? Why can't we have a poetry group? And in my head, I'm like, well, because I'm a music therapist, right? But then I thought, well, if we're going to do it, we should do it now, right? I'm not going to try this someday. They want to do a poetry group. So I think the next group, we decided to come together on this idea, and it was very much sort of community led. I actually also chose to write and share a poem in the group, which I don't know if anyone's ever actively taken part in a songwriting experience, but when you read something that you wrote down like 5 minutes ago in front of a group of people, it's like, whoa, right? I'm sharing from the heart right now, right? Um, and so it was just really lovely in that moment to kind of also partake in that real uh, communal experience with the folks that I was working with. Um, and so just wanted to share kind of like how that came together and how it it led me to, I think, also really wanting to consider just valuing the community as it is naturally occurring in places where it it needs to, right? Community in itself is the element that really brought those folks together and drove them to the point of being like, we want to write together, we want to create together, we want to uphold one another's writing and perspectives together. And that's that. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Jesse. Let's move on to our last two, I believe. And you all, I love the conversation in the chat. Thank you for engaging and kind of really making this feel alive. I know we have some things to share and things like that, but I love that communication and conversation can still go on beside that, right? And as part of it. So thank you. Deborah, I'd love if you're ready, I would love to invite you to share next.
Absolutely. Hi.
Hey.
So I am happy to read. I mean, I've submitted a recording of the piece, but I'm happy to read it now.
Sure. That sounds great. I'll go ahead and share my screen and I can follow along sort of on the transcript here.
And then I will read from your screen, so we'll be in the same spot.
Amazing. Perfect.
So this is Music as a Cultural Immunogen, lessons our grandmother taught me. A letter from Deborah Jelinek-Gombert, me, to Elizabeth Jelinek. Dear Betsy, last night when we were telling family stories, Uncle Rich said that I made a career out of what Omi instinctively did with music. You asked what he meant, but he was already telling the next story. I thought about it after everyone had left. I sometimes forget that I knew Omi many years longer than you did. So Omi was born in 1911, well before music therapy was a profession, and Omi used music differently than I do. As a music therapist, I work with clients on non-musical goals, learning, healing physically, or growing emotionally. For Omi, it was all about community. Music therapist Even Rude suggested that music can be a cultural immunogen, a cultural artifact that might increase a person's immunity and ability to adapt or respond to life. This speaks to the health-related potential of musicking for both the individual and the community. And that is how Omi used music. She told a story about when she was in college and dating Opa. They were on a long bicycle ride out in the country when Omi had an accident that was bad enough that she had to go to the hospital for a few days. She described the women's ward of the small local hospital as medically adequate but drab. So she told Opa, Walter, I need my accordion. And Opa, of course, dutifully brought it to her by motorcycle. And I love the image of him riding his motorcycle with an accordion on the back. So I understood that she, a middle-class Jewish girl, felt somewhat out of place in that country hospital. She figured out what songs the women would know, and years later, she reported that everyone appreciated singing the Volkslied along with her to pass the time. She used music to alter the space and to give herself a place. It was medicine for herself, the other women, and for the space. Omi and Opa had to flee Europe during World War II, only a few years after they were married. They arrived in the United States with limited English and few transferable skills, but Omi had music. She learned new folk songs and popular songs so she could play with immigrants and migrant workers from Italy, Russia, Ukraine, Romania, Yugoslavia, and Mexico. She would play whatever was called for. It hardly mattered what she was playing as long as she was musicking, as long as she was meeting in music and creating community. She used music to make connections. They eventually moved to Roosevelt, a town whose residents were predominantly immigrants. I'm pretty sure that Omi had never led a band before that, but no matter, the town had no band. So she started one. Anyone who could play was included. Omi was on piano, and there was a mandolin, accordion, violin, 2 saxophones, a piccolo, clarinet. The school principal, whomever was home from college, the beginners like me, we played klezmer, we played songs from the old country, we played music from the new country, we played American marches, Broadway songs, and popular music. Again, the music was whatever was called for. Rehearsals really became a social event with as much music as there were stories about the past. There again, Omi created connections and a purpose for herself. The impact went beyond the musicians. The band was really a source of town pride. They played for the 4th of July and they played for town events. A few of them composed a song about the town's history. The community really claimed ownership of that band. A lot of the people in that town were Holocaust survivors, and music provided a way to heal as they connected to a new country. They had new music and new people. So it fit Rood's description of a cultural immunogen. Music was used as a cultural artifact that helped everyone respond to what life had to offer. I sometimes got to work with Omi when I was in grade school. At that time, she taught children who today might be diagnosed as having a variety of moderate cognitive or physical impairments. And I loved her classroom. If I was working there today, I might use music for learning, emotional, or physical goals. But Omi didn't look for justification for making music together. They played music. They set up music for each student's needs, their abilities, and preferences. So the goal she had was not learning music, but playing music. It was about working together. It was about creating community and generating pride. For a student to know I could do that and everyone heard me do it. So what else can I do? Again, music was an immunogen. Of course, she didn't stop once she retired. So one more story. When she moved to her retirement community, they had no choir. Never mind that Omi had no experience leading one. Somehow she decided that that was what the community needed. So she started one. She found simple arrangements of their favorite songs. The members loved it, and so did the larger community. Years later, people like Rita and Anna still spoke about the value of that choir in creating pride and a sense of purpose within their community. Musicking created resilience, community, and a purpose for them in retirement. You remember her practicing piano well into her 80s, right? She never stopped playing the Chopin and Brahms that she heard growing up. As an immigrant who had to flee to save her life, music was a connection to her former country and a connector in her new country. How many people can say that their grandmother was their first music therapy teacher? She met people at their skill level and she played their preferred music. She used music to connect to people from new backgrounds or cultures and to create or strengthen communities everywhere she went. For her, music was all about community. I might even say only about community. She was an amazing woman. I'm glad that we both knew her so well. Love you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for sharing that. I know I shared this with you, but I love that this kind of reflection on community is shared and in the form of a letter with someone to your in your family. That is a really cool kind of expression to me that, you know, the connections run deep there, and the music is so connectional. If you'd want to say anything else, I know there's a lot of context there, but feel free to tag on anything else you'd want to kind of share about that piece.
I was struck by how often in the United States we take music out of that community context and put it into a therapeutic context. And that for my grandmother, there was never a separation between playing music and there was never a separation between music and community or music, those therapeutic aspects. So for her, it wasn't a she almost was surprised that I decided to go into this field where I was going to be doing this thing called music therapy, because it was inherently connected to her. And community music therapy was what she did. She just didn't call it music therapy. It was it was always in the community. And I was also struck by the ways in which I often define music therapy to family. they, would relate it to what my grandmother did. And yet there are differences in how so often in the United States we explain what it is and take it out of, again, often it gets taken out of that community context. And so I was just really pleased to put it back in that community context. And I did have my sister Betsy read it. I really got feedback from her. She's not a music therapist. On if it made sense to somebody who's not a music therapist. So
I love that, again, speaking to the liminality, right, of the roles that we can inhabit as community musicians and workers and people, like a people of community, right? What a wonderful way to just put that in such personal terms. So, I mean, thank you again for sharing.
Thank you.
All right. On to our last person. I believe I'm going to give the spotlight to Lorna here. And I'm just going to play your videos really fast, and then after I play them, I'm going to invite you to speak on it.
How has having music in prison affected you or changed your life? It's improved every aspect of my life. I've always seen music as kind of therapeutic to begin with, and in this stressful environment where everything in your day is stressful, headache, causes migraines, music is the one time where you can just take everything that's bottled up and let it go. Through the music, through singing, through whatever. And it improves every aspect, because when you get here, it lets everything out, and then once you leave, it's like you're refreshed. So it's like hitting a reset button on your emotions every day. So there's so many aspects of prison, too many to name. This would be 3 hours long if I went through everything. And this music is, even for people that don't play music, that are just able to come and just sing, let it out, get it out. And that's what I tell a lot of these guys when they come to the class. I'm like, look, this is your one chance to let it go. Get in there and have fun. You're yelled at all week long. You're in stressful environments all week long. Come in here, you're away from that. Let it go.
Thank you for sharing those, Lorna, and feel free to contextualize or share whatever you'd like to about them.
So that was I always like to thank the DOC for giving me permission to walk through a prison with a camera for an entire day and to just film stuff. So those videos, and I have so many more of them, those are gold. That's not an easy something everybody gets to do every day. So I'm so thankful for that. And I think this is a really great example of, I went in and had an idea of like to start a therapy group with these gentlemen. And it took a life of its own. And I've heard it said all day today, off and on, it's not always our job to decide what the therapeutic goals are, right? That can be created by the group. And another beautiful thing was that obviously these guys they were musicians. Like, I didn't teach anybody how to do any of that. I just helped to facilitate making it happen. But then the musicians in that group turned to their peers, their fellow inmates, and said, hey, if you want to participate, we'll teach you how to play something so that you can be here. So, they in turn created their own community. All of those guys in that video are out now, and 4 of them, I'm currently working on a new project since we're all out and about. So it's really cool. The lead singer, his name is Rosato. He actually had a stroke late last year, but is still able to sing and has limited mobility in his guitar playing, but still doing just kick-ass stuff. So cool. So that's all I'll say about it.
Yay. The responses to this, I don't know if you've been going through the chat, but very impactful to, it seems, so many people, and definitely to me too. So thank you for sharing that so much.
Thank you. Thanks for making a space for it.
So I would love to just open the floor. If anybody has any just responses or questions for any of the folks who presented today, or if anybody wants to add in anything else, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you a little bit. It's a little muffled, but keep going. I think we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I'm in my car. I work with kids, and I find that there's a big barrier in sharing what we do in sessions with the community in terms of like, do we have permission from their parents to share what they want to share? Especially in the mental health institutions that I've worked at, we are not able to share anything, regardless of whether the kids want to share, but we haven't been able to share it because either the parents don't want to or it's a liability. And I was kind of wondering if anyone had any advice for things like that.
I think definitely my initial response is sort of, I think maybe Kathy was talking about this earlier, or somebody was talking about this in terms of our need to share and where those lines, I think it was Liz Mitchell was talking about this, our need to share and where that's coming from in a place of, maybe you need to share this for a grant, maybe you need to share this for a therapeutic reason, maybe you are kind of working towards a goal of performance with a group. I think those are kind of things. So my first reaction, reaction, is to say, well, maybe consider what is the really point and what is the goal behind the sharing. And I think there are maybe some ways that you could then kind of proceed from there. But that was my kind of initial reaction. Jesse, if you have anything else to add.
No, it's not necessarily the most straightforward response or whatnot, but I think I'm just thinking of earlier when I guess Stiga was referencing the idea of kind of that we are in a community music therapy model pushing back a little bit and kind of I don't want to say breaking the rules, but sort of finding a way to advocate for the work that we're doing that does further, more sharing and more knowledge and more just kind of wanting to know about the work that we're doing. And so I also work in like a mental health institution, like I was sharing, and for a long time I wasn't ever getting any client material. I was never recording because it was definitely frowned upon in the setting. And I think that then there were a few in-house presentations where, I was like, I don't want to just be speaking. I want to have the clients kind of speak for themselves or have material that I can share and provide. And I think it just kind of, first of all, clarifying, like Andrew said, the purpose of it, like this is something it's going to stay in-house, right? It's not going to be published anywhere. It's going to be for the purposes of supervision or for presentation or something of that nature. Um, and then just kind of also like then once the clients or individuals you're working with, I know it's a little more challenging with parents, right? But have the say to start, then it becomes a little more cyclical, I guess is what I'm saying. Is then I've had folks say, without me even asking, hey, I'd love if you could hold on to this material. I'd love if you could share this material, or I would like to perform this. I would like to do this for my parents or in some type of setting, right? And then I have to actually navigate how possible that is or not. But it's just nice to, I think, find those little opportunities where it can be kind of it can be initiated and then I think the response, it starts to grow from there, if that makes sense.
Olivia, anything that we didn't kind of address that you're curious about still?
No, I think that was a great response. It is about like finding the little loopholes in how we can achieve our goals through whatever that may be. So like I've had clients that really want to share, but I have been unable to record or even having them like perform for their peers or for the staff has been like such a challenge. And it's really sad because they want to, and I don't want to. It's such a big part of their healing. I don't want to squash that, but it's something that's definitely difficult to navigate. But I'll just continue pushing on.
Sorry, I just had one more
you're
quick thought I
great.
forgot. But just that, I also wanted to share my experience when this came up. It had been kind of shut down at first, and then when I actually went ahead to ask about it, I found that through our psychology department, there had already been like a HR drafted or some sort of legal, like the legal department had already approved some sort of form for release, right? So I was kind of like made to feel like I was, asking this thing that had never been done before, and yet the psychology department and psychology interns were regularly recording and using content. So
I was gonna just say, kind of related to other ideas that other people have talked about today. Also, just recognizing, I think, the inherent, and I'm not saying this is every situation like this. This is obviously super contextual, but I think there's also the ability of like suppressing their voices, right? Like they're okay. I understand that they're a vulnerable population. Like we get that too, but when I think about, some of these vulnerable populations adjacent, like the foster care scenario, one of the other things I've noticed too is even with staff pushback, it's like sometimes it's not even the outside world that needs to see those things. It's the other staff members that need to believe that that kid is not, like all trouble, right? Like, no, that's a beautiful person that is multifaceted too, right? And like, ugh, I don't know. I'm like on the verge of tears because all of these like presentations, I was like, I get the frog in the throat really bad right now because I think that's it. To me, it's like, it's a bunch of little snapshots of like letting their stories be what they want it to be. Not what we want it to be, not what HR wants it to be, not what development wants it to be, not, like what do they want it to be? And it might be none of your business, might be what they want the story to be, right? It might be their own my own damn business is what it is. But it's, yeah, it's kind of tricky too because it's like, yeah, well, And one subversive way I feel like I've actually done that is like, and we've talked about this, music therapy's talked about like, even like copyright, right? Like doing songs, like recording songs and stuff. I've literally been like, here's the song. You do what you want to do with it. It's your song. I don't care where you post it. Like, it's yours. You want to post it on YouTube, SoundCloud, Rap Chat, your Facebook page. I'm not going to flag it. Like, I'm not going to hit the thing to say it's gone. Yeah. And then there's also something weird ethically about that. It's like they're assuming that risk. Not that they probably care that their YouTube channel gets demonetized or whatever the issue is, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's also weird because it puts them as the person that's now carrying that risk as maybe a 13-year-old, right? Like, they don't know that. So it's just, yeah. I don't know. There's no answer to that. It's just so complicated.
Yeah. That response is really great. I love that kind of idea. I'm doing some songwriting projects with an addiction recovery center kind of close by in our area recently. And the main question that these guys have been asking me is like, okay, if I write a song, am I going to get royalties? Am I gonna get royalties from that? And I was like, listen, if I ever get royalties from it, you definitely will. But really, it's that like, the experience is owned by them. There's no kind of, and I think that's important, as Chris was saying, to get people in institutions, especially like the ones that we exist in every day, to see that, right? That like the experiences and opinions of the people in those institutions are valued and not just kind of a monolith, right? And everyone in this institution should behave the same way or wants the same things, right? So yeah, all kinds of crazy. Thank you for asking the question, Olivia, because I think it's important conversations to have.
I saw a lot of people like nodding heads and stuff. We're at 2, so I just want to say 2 things. Like, one, does anybody else want to share anything like on any of those ideas or any last thoughts? The only thing I have left to do is I'm going to let you all know a little bit about the CMT and the asynchronous stuff. So does anybody have any other comments before the business at the end? Go ahead, Kathy.
Theo and I wrote an article about the right to copyright for children. I'm going to put a link in the chat. It was published in Voices.
Well, some of you all have been here since 10 in the morning. Well, and who knows what time it is for you. I'm just super grateful again. This literally exceeded every possible expectation I could have ever had or wanted for this experience. And you all are the people that happen to be able to be available today. There's 200 something more people that'll be watching this later. You might be watching part of this later. But I'm just going to screen share real quick about so that you understand the CMTE side of it. If you're doing